Hey, everybody. So I'm sure if you saw the name of the episode, a situation probably popped into your head where you've been around a friend, a family member, and you could tell things were going really poorly. Sometimes it's in the context of marriage, which is what we're talking about today. Sometimes it's maybe just they've said some things or indicated they're getting involved in some things that you know are going to be destructive for them. But in the context of marriage, I think probably we can all relate to a time when you were around someone and you were like, man, is their marriage like in a really bad place right now? And so the question is to say something or not to say something. That
is the question.
Is the podcast.
Let's get into that.
Before we jump into today's show, I wanted to ask you to check out our website, brand new website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. That's marriagebydesignpodcast.com. All of our episodes are available there on that website. Love to have you pop over there, follow us there, and check it out.
If you have a topic that you're wanting more information on or you have questions about, you can search on our website by topic, which is a really great feature.
That's right. And more than anything, guys, please share this with someone that would find it meaningful for them. Without any more delay, let's get to the show. Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock, and you've joined us for the Marriage by Design podcast, a time where we get to talk to you about God's design for marriage, what the Bible has to say about that, and how we live that out practically. And this episode is more practical. So how are we dealing with situations where we're like, man, this marriage maybe doesn't seem right, or maybe even they've said like, we're really struggling. Do you jump in or do you just say, oh man, yeah, I'm going to pray for you? Maybe you have some sort of relationship. It's not like every little thing we're jumping in on, right? But maybe you have a relationship with somebody that you're like, oh, I'm really sensing some real bombs in this marriage coming up, and I want to love them well by talking about this and seeing maybe how I can help. So
right. So we're splitting this up into two parts generally, although really this could be two completely separate topics, I suppose. But today we're going to talk about what Andrea just described, and I'm really going to divide that into just three kind of mini topics. The first one is, how do you recognize there's a problem? The second one is answering the question of when do you say something about it versus when do you let it go? And the third one is, how do you say something about it? And then next week, we're going to talk about building a bridge to other marriages. And really, the purpose of that episode is going to be to say, look, having any difficult conversation is hard. Having a difficult conversation about someone's marriage is nearly impossible if you haven't spent time really. When I say building a bridge, I mean building a relationship, and a sturdy relationship, because that message is going to be a really difficult one. And if you don't have a pretty sturdy relationship with that person, it's going to be really difficult for you to deliver a message that you may feel like you need to take to them.
Yeah.
So
unless they've sought you out,
Yeah, which again is, I mean, if someone comes to you and says, hey, my marriage is...
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's lots of people who've come to us that we have no relationship with, but they're asking us to be.
Yeah, and of course, in that case, that's not this at all, right? We're talking about when we... Yeah, got it. Okay, so we're talking about in the context of when you notice there's a problem.
Yep.
So first thing that we ought to probably cover for a couple of minutes up front is maybe just answer the question of like, how do you know if there's a problem or not?
I think most of the time people just know. You hear the comments that are the digs, I guess, at each other
Sure. Yeah,
that are happening frequently. A dig here, a dig there, whatever. But you hear just consistent digs at each other in conversation. That's probably something to talk about.
Okay.
Probably something to start trying to look into. I think just conversation where they're clearly not understanding God's design for marriage. And I mean, we see that with people that we have the opportunity to talk to, where they're clearly not understanding God's design for marriage, and their marriage is getting sideways quickly.
Sure.
Because it doesn't work well when we're saying that we trust the Lord, that we trust the Lord with our lives, but we're not following his plan for our marriage. Our marriages get sideways pretty quickly. So just conversations. I don't know that there's really a guidebook for how do you know if it's going wrong, other than you just kind of start seeing things and getting clued into some things. Usually people aren't as good as they think they are about hiding the mess.
So how does that advice you just gave change if it's a couple that professes to be Christian versus one that doesn't?
I believe that whether a couple is Christian or not, we still counsel Christian values, because the Lord made marriage. So the Lord is the authority on marriage. So even if it's a couple who doesn't say they're believers, we don't hold them to the standard of Christian values. So I'm not going to, like, the only example I can think of is, if they're choosing to, if they're engaged and choosing to live together, I'll still go to their wedding, because they don't. That's the only thing I can really think of. Anyway,
not an
because they're not
yoked thing. You're saying,
right? They're not unequally yoked. Yeah, they're not living by God's standards.
Okay,
they're not trying. You're saying that they are. But for sure, I'm going to counsel somebody, advise somebody in the ways of the Lord, even if they're not believers. But I'm probably not going to say that it comes from the Bible. I'm not going to overtly say, well, let's look at the Bible on this and that and this and that, because they don't care. I'm going to talk about the Bible some, but I'm not going to hinge my entire conversation with them on, well, you should care about this because this is what the Lord has to say.
Yeah. So right. Yep. So, we may counsel someone who's a Christian couple on, hey, the way you're treating each other is unkind. And kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. It's one of the things that we're specifically called to in Ephesians or in Galatians as Christians. And what you're doing is unkind. It's a sin. And it's something that needs to be repented of and confessed to each other in order for you to have the marriage that God intends you to have. Whereas in a non-Christian couple, I might just sit them down and go, hey, you're being a jerk and it's hurting her. Do you want to hurt her? I mean, you've pursued her. You asked her to be your wife. She now is your wife and you're overtly hurting her. Is that what you want to do? And try and make it in like the simplest terms that are just not necessarily taken from the Bible. Although, I mean, to Andrea's point, it's the same thing.
Same message, just
right.
It's maybe just given in a different way.
Yeah, it's a semantical change to try and pursue people where they're at, which we'll come back to that here in a minute. So, yeah, I would completely agree with you, babe, if people are sniping at each other, if they are being unkind to each other. I would add on to that, this is not a overt their marriage is in a bad place, but it is something that always triggers me to want to have a side conversation with someone. If you're talking disparagingly about your spouse and they are not there, that immediately my sort of red flags go up. And if it's one of my close friends, I will call him or pull him aside or text him and just say like, hey, that was super not honoring. Like that.
And what's going on?
Yeah. Like, is everything okay? Like, I understand maybe you're just trying to be funny, but that was not an appropriate comment that was made because, again, we as Christian couples, we represent the relationship between Christ and the church. That's the God's design for marriage. And so if we're presenting this like, oh, you're never going to believe what my wife did, or, oh, my wife would just, or, any of those disparaging remarks about our spouse, they're not appropriate in a group setting like that where you are not seeking
advice.
Specific counsel.
Yeah.
And
for yourself.
Certainly I have,
for yourself, not
right.
for the other person.
Right. I certainly have times where I sit down with guys, lots of times.
No,
this
you
has
don't.
happened,
I'm perfect.
And they want to talk about, I think you just sold yourself out. And they're talking about their spouse.
Oh, sorry.
And even just between the two of us, when they are actively coming to me for Christian counsel, and they go down the road of pointing out the issues with their wife, I listen, and then at the end of that, I'm immediately trying to redirect them. Because, and if you want examples of this, go read 85% of the comments on our videos. Because the most common comment we get on our videos about anything we talk about is someone wanting to post in the comment section all about how they can't do the thing we're saying they should do because their spouse this, and this. And every time I respond to those comments and say, the problem is by the time you got to the second sentence of your comment, you already missed it. Marriage is not about your other person. It's about you.
Well,
and so,
at least in this circumstance.
So how
it's about your responsibility. Meaning, yeah. I'm just because we're constantly telling ourselves lately, like our mantra is, it's not about you. And we're telling our kids that, and we're telling each other that,
yeah, it's not about your...
I'm saying it's about your responsibility to your spouse and to the Lord.
Of course, when they're complaining about their spouse, what they're complaining about is my spouse isn't giving me what I ought to get.
Right.
And I'm saying...
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, your marriage isn't about you. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but your actions are about you.
Right, but your responsibility is.
You can't control whether your spouse is or isn't doing the things. And you might be right. I mean, there's all kinds of people that post comments to our videos and quote the Bible, and they're right.
Yep.
Their heart is just wrong. Because the point of them posting that is to point out that the wife ought to be doing this thing.
Well, yeah,
I should be
exempted from this responsibility because the other person.
Even if they're not specifically speaking about their spouse, I still call them out because the heart attitude ought to be in marriage, what can I do for my spouse regardless of what he or she gives back to me? It's a sacrificial relationship empowered by the Holy Spirit, and we do it because God calls us to do it. And if we both do that, man, your marriage will be unbelievable. But most of the time, we don't. And a lot of that time, it's because we get crazy in our marriage because we're so focused on what the other person ought to be doing. And we stop to go, well, man, what are my responsibilities as a husband? What are my responsibilities as a wife? And, a lot of times that's because we don't like the answer. I mean, just being super honest. Like a lot of times it's because we know what the Bible says about those roles and we don't like it. So we sort of just shuffle on by. And in my opinion, to tie this back, it's why you get a lot of when it's girls' night, when it's guys' night of talking about your spouse in a disparaging way, because right there you're with like-minded people in most cases who are seeing things in blue if it's guys hanging out with guys, or are seeing things in pink if it's girls hanging out with girls. And so you've got perhaps a little bit of an echo chamber there to be able to make this thing relatable. And so keep your ears open. Right? Because marriages that get in a bad way, a lot of times when you see it in its earliest stages is when people are, I call it throwing out feelers, right? They toss just one or two disparaging comments out to see how it goes. And if nobody says anything, then it starts to snowball. And so that's the question of like, well, what should I be looking for? I mean, of course, there's all kinds of, those are the subtle things, right? There's all kinds of overt things. If you hang out routinely with your friend and his wife, and they're regularly showing up to hanging out with you in separate vehicles, there maybe are some questions that ought to be asked there. Maybe they both come from work. I understand. I'm just giving examples. If they admit to things, doing things in their home that you know are not God honoring, and they may not even see it as a problem, right? They may think it's perfectly fine that we have an open marriage. And they flaunt that out there, and why not? It makes us happy and helps us at home because we're both on the same page there. So who are we harming? There may be things like that where you're like, man, that isn't right. Read body language, right? Like when he's talking, look at her. That happens a lot where when I'm with someone and they're sharing about like how are things going at home, and the husband's talking, man, I'm looking at the wife because you'll find out real fast what the truth of the matter is by just observing behavior.
Yep.
So that's really it, right? Be a listener, be an observer. So often, particularly as guys, we get so busy wanting to do our thing and talk about our thing that we don't listen very well, and we really need to be better about that because, man, you can get to a place where you look back and go, man, I should have known that something was going on. So that's the first thing. How do we recognize it? The second thing is, when do we say something? This is the most difficult part, I think. Partly because, in my opinion, and babe, you can tell me what you feel about this. My opinion is you say something as early as you get a whiff that something's going on. I mean, I would way rather say something and have a couple go, no, I mean, everything's fine, than to say something and have a couple go, yeah, we've actually been separated for the last couple of months. Like, my opinion is as soon as you see something that raises that makes your marital spidey senses tingle, say something. And we're going to talk here in a second about how to go about that. So don't go about that by just pausing the conversation in the middle of the dinner party you're having and going, hey, I think you guys are in trouble. Let's talk about that. But my point is, as soon as you see those even small indications of like, man, this is not great, say something. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think how you say it, which I know we're going to talk about here in a minute, how you say it is important.
Totally.
But are you really being a friend if you're not at least asking the question? There were a couple people before we were married who saw something. So they said something. So it was before we were married. They just saw some like things that they were concerned about. And so they said something, and I so respect them for saying something because that was really hard. And, at the time, I don't know that. Yeah. At the time, I thought a lot about that, but I also felt like, man, I'm too far in and all the things. But yeah, it was a good thing for them to say those things, and it started making me think. And one of the pastor that married us had some conversations with us about like, just questioning, is this the right thing right now?
Right.
And I'll tell you that even though we pushed that off and we weren't very receptive to what he was saying, the seeds he planted for what is a godly marriage and the seeds he planted for, us just choosing the Lord over ourselves.
Right.
They bursted through the soil 8 years later.
Right.
When all hope seemed lost.
Yep. That's a really good point.
And so even in the moment, we weren't receptive necessarily to what he was saying for right then.
Yep.
It planted something that has grown to 20 years later.
Yeah.
We're still here.
Point.
So I want to say that even if you feel like, man, that didn't go over well, or they're rejecting getting help, or they're rejecting what I'm saying, or anything like that, don't lose hope that something has been planted.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Burst through the soil in a time that's even more desperate.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And that we should underscore that. And I think there's part of the reason, although I wouldn't have necessarily thought it through as well as you just did, but I think that's part of the reason why I would say get to someone early. Because there's two ways that can go, right? I mean, if it's either way, if it's a Christian couple or not a Christian couple, depending on how you present it in Christian terms to a Christian couple, or more just common human decency terms to a non-Christian couple, either they might receive that, and even if they would honestly say our marriage isn't in a bad place right now, they might look at that and go, man, we don't talk very nicely to each other. Or, yeah, we kind of have let sarcasm get out of control. And they may never, they may not thank you. They may, when you say it, they may be like, look, mind your own business. But then they may on the back end sit down together and heed that discipling. Alternatively, they might blow it off completely, in which case perhaps some days, weeks, months, or years down the road, that word that you spoke pops through the soil, as you say, and bears its fruit at that point.
Right.
It's really good. It's
you
a
just
great
don't
point,
know.
Babe. It's a great point.
And our responsibility is to the Lord, and doing what's right as unto the Lord.
Right.
So
man, don't just embrace the uncomfortable. Right. When we look through the New Testament, particularly the Gospels, and we see how, well, specifically the Gospels in the case of Jesus, we see that he did not shy away from being uncomfortable. He was perfectly fine being uncomfortable because it was for the benefit of these people that he loved. For us, as we have friends and relationships with people, if we tell them we love them, we ought to be able to show that by embracing being uncomfortable for their benefit.
Yeah, it's a real popular thing these days to be like, oh, love is acceptance.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't know. People are not thinking that through, right? Love is not acceptance. It is pushing people towards what is right. Right. It's being truthful with people. That's in love, for sure. But we have to be truthful with people. You know, I had a raging eating disorder when I was in high school, and my parents saw it early. They saw it coming, but I was still headed down that road like very quickly, you know, and they got me into counseling really early. But I still chose what I chose. It would have not been loving for them to have said, you know, she just believes that she's really fat. Right. And she believes that not eating is what's right for her. And so we're going to support her in that. And, you know, maybe a little crazy, but we're just going to, Andrea,
you're right.
Like if that's what's right for you, then you go ahead and we'll support you in that and cheerlead you on. And I hope that you find the true you and all that. Right. I was killing myself, and they didn't. They loved me by telling me the truth and helping me to hopefully see the truth. And it took a long time, but they were not willing to just accept my version of reality. They wanted me to understand what reality was, and I needed to live there.
Yep, that's a great call.
So how if that's, and we all of course would agree with that. Loving me in that would not have been accepting what I was believing.
Right.
Loving me was truth. It's the same thing with all the other crazy things that are going on now, including marriage. I'm not loving you if I'm not telling you the truth.
Right.
And just letting you implode.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly right. So then how do we do that? Right. So once you recognize, hey, I think there's an issue here, just super practically, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah. So this is where the loving part comes in. You know, if we're just going in guns blazing and saying, oh my gosh, you're doing this, I'm seeing this, you know, that's probably not loving. So
it's not going to be effective.
A really great way that to confront some of these things is to start asking questions, because then you don't come in looking like you're judging somebody. You come in just asking questions. Hey, how's your marriage? Great first question. I noticed you said this. Do you feel resentment towards your husband or wife, or do you feel like there's something off? Can we talk about something? I'm really concerned because I heard this or I saw this. I think starting off with questions is a really great place, because you don't look like you're just coming in without any information and just judging.
Yeah. And who are you approaching on that?
So I am never approaching the guy on my own, right? Like, I'm never going to a guy and having a conversation with a guy on my own ever, except my husband.
Why is that? Because he's just smarter than you are? Or?
Yes, that's why. Next episode. No, because that's inappropriate. I should not be having. That can open doors that we should not be opening.
Sure,
so I don't want to have an
in the case
emotional.
we're talking about.
Right. I don't want to have an emotional conversation with any guy without my husband there, or alone, I guess I should say. It's not appropriate. There's so many times where we're sharing our heart. That's not we. There's so many times out in the world where a guy or a girl is sharing their heart with somebody of the opposite sex, and that just ends up leading into an affair.
Right.
Or at the very least, an inappropriate relationship. I mean, it can lead into just an inappropriate relationship, or you're kind of just betraying your spouse by talking about them with somebody of the opposite sex. It's not appropriate.
Right. And let's just make it really practical. That's not going to help.
Yeah.
Like when the husband goes home and goes, hey, I was having a conversation with Nathan's wife the other day.
Unless Nathan's there.
She was right, but then he's probably not going to present it that way.
Yeah. But
like my point is, it's just going to make a bad situation worse, because especially if they're in a bad place, that wife's probably already not in a good headspace. And so she may immediately go to like, the heck was Andrea doing asking you if you weren't in a good place with me? Andrea trying to move in on you? Like, it's just not a good look. It's not, the Bible reminds us as Christians in several different places that we're to be clever in our approach. Mm-hmm. Like, we're to be sly and wise in the way that we approach Christianity. And so in the case of approaching a couple and trying to really intercede on behalf of their marriage, I always try to approach it like, what's the best strategy, right? Like, if it's a couple that I kind of know him, but Andrea really knows her, then I'm probably not going to approach him at all. But Andrea and I might talk about it, and then Andrea might go to her and be like, hey, we noticed this. What, like you mentioned, what's going on here? Tell me a little bit about what's going on. And depending on that conversation, I may reach out to him and just say, hey, depending on how the conversation, now I've got all kinds of tactics I can take, right? Like, I can play stupid and say like, hey, look like maybe there's some things going on. Would you like to talk about it? I may come at it a little more forceful and say like, hey, Andrea, talk to your wife. I know things aren't good. Would love to just get together with you and kind of be here for you. Or I may call him and say, hey, I think Andrea and I and you and your wife you guys need to come over for some coffee and cookies or whatever, and we're going to talk about this. And The point is, like, we're taking it on a case-by-case basis, but it means both of you have to be willing to embrace being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because it could be that your husband is really comfortable being uncomfortable and you're really not, but the situation dictates that it really needs to be you that's reaching out to your friend and trying to intercede on behalf of her marriage. And we just can't be people that just go, well, I don't know, it makes me really uncomfortable, so good luck. We need to be willing to get uncomfortable on behalf of those that to whom the Lord directs us. So, I would agree with you, babe. We're never doing a one-on-one with somebody of the opposite gender, unless it's someone within your immediate family, right? Like, obviously, I have one-on-one conversations, not about marriage because she's not married, but I have one-on-one conversations with my sister,
Of course,
regularly. I mean, my point is, like, a lot of times where this comes up is in family. So, if it's your sister and you're a guy and you recognize, like, hey, this doesn't look good, fine. Then, like, that you might actually be the best one between you and your spouse to reach out to your sister and talk about that.
And I know it's uncomfortable, probably more so in a family relationship to say something, but gosh, say something, because you don't want for something to, down the road, the couple's like, man, we just went through the worst part of our marriage and whatever.
Right.
And somebody to say, yeah, we thought something was going on. Why didn't you say something?
Yeah, super unkind.
So
don't be those people. Say something. If you
see something, say something.
Thank you. Hopefully this gives you a few ideas. Obviously, these episodes always make me a little uncomfortable because there's a million different scenarios.
Yes, right.
And so I feel like we're just barely throwing a pebble in the water. But would love to know y'all's experience. Like, did something come up? What is it that you have seen in other people where you're like, man, this feels really bad? And how did you go about approaching that? Would love to get your feedback on that. In a similar vein, perhaps you're in a position right now where you are struggling in your own marriage and you don't know who to reach out to for that. If that's you, send us an email, marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com, so that we can pray for you, offer you some practical guidance on where to go from here. So that is the beginning of our 2-part episode about championing marriage. Look forward to speaking with you all next week when we talk about how to practically build bridges with those around us. Can't wait to get into that. Until then, have a great week, guys. And remember, God is for your marriage.
Thanks so much for listening. We just wanted to say, if you have a comment, a question, something that you're struggling with or need prayer, please reach out to us. You can get a hold of us by emailing marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can comment on any of our social media and we will get back to you. But if you have something private, feel free to email us. We're personally respond to you.
That's right. And we do respond to every comment that we receive, either through our website, through YouTube, through our social medias, which leads me to feel free to pop over to our website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. You can leave comments on any of our videos through that site. We would love to be able to connect with you, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you just need prayer, you need someone to hear what you're going through, we're here for the Marriage by Design community, so feel free to reach out anytime. Until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.